Hey, can you hear me? Is everyone there?
We
Oh
got
boy.
you, Jeremy. You're good.
All right. I always love that I make Russ do that for me. I am just trying to get my computer set up. And gosh dang it, I was going to use my wall as a whiteboard and it doesn't look like it's going to work, but that's okay. I hope you're all doing phenomenal today. I am so excited to be with you. Yeah, just lots of good stuff that I want to talk about today. Specifically, I'm going to dive into skill sets today and some of the key elements of the skills that you need to succeed at a very high level. So let me just grab a couple things. Hang tight. It's not true. I was spitting out my gum. None of you even knew. All right. So, guys, I'm just going to try to get this. I'm so sorry, guys, but I've got to like what I'm looking at here on the angle. That'll be okay. Okay, so skill sets. Look, when we look at the real estate foundation, if you have a pen and paper and you're looking at it and you're taking some notes right now, what I'd be writing down is the same foundation that we always talk about. Number one, purpose, why, vision. What do you want? Number two, creating a business plan and a schedule. Number three, strengthening. I always like to say strengthening and protecting a strong mindset. Number four, discipline and accountability. Number five, skill sets. And number six is your systems and your strategy. So today, I want to focus heavily on number five. I'm going to go through some specific scripts that I believe can be a great element to you and your business. We are going to talk today about the close. Think about that for a moment. When we talk about the things that an agent should be engaged in every single day, we talk about prospecting, follow-up, presenting, negotiating, and then, of course, closing. Closing is not just the go to the title company for settlement. Closing is when you have to do things to get people to say yes. This is what you have to do to get people on the hook. So here's what I'm going to do today is I'm going to hit just a few quick points, some thoughts about the actual close that I think are critical. And so write a couple of these notes down. And then what I want to do is I want to work through some closes and give you guys a chance to see on paper what these can and should be so that you're starting to develop in your mind what these look like. So step number one is this. Closing is simple if you give a great presentation. Write that down. Closing is simple if you give a great presentation. When you have done what you need to do as far as knowing, this will be number two, but just it's critical that you give a great presentation. When you do that, the close is really like a natural ending at that point. People say yes, but there's elements of that that are important throughout. I always love the story. Some of you may remember George. He tells the story of how when he would stand up at a stand-up cubicle and prospect, I think he said he had some quarters or something, and his objective was always to get them to say, typically in sales, I don't know what George's number was, typically in sales, they say you ought to get 5 yeses from people. So you're closing them throughout and getting them to say yes. As an example, it might be like if you're meeting with a seller, for example, you might say, hey, getting this home sold is a priority, correct? Yes. He'd slide 1 quarter across the table. And just to be clear, it is critical that you get the most money possible out of the sale, correct? Question. You're getting people to say yes at that point. So as you're working through this process and as you are working toward getting the final close, you should be getting yeses all throughout the presentation. And again, getting the close at the end is a natural ending to a great presentation. Step number two, or thought number two, is understanding that when you understand your client's needs and wants and motivation, needs, wants, motivation, getting the close is much easier. Why is that? Well, I've learned over the years that when you understand someone's motivation, their needs, their wants, the thing that's driving them to make the decision, that it's much easier to get them to move forward with you because you've created value. Think about the people in your life who've gotten to know you, who have gotten to understand what it is that drives you and your motivation. Do you feel more comfortable with them or less comfortable with them? Do you think you'd want to engage in a transaction with that person more than someone that doesn't understand your needs and wants? It's a no-brainer in this game, guys. You want to understand their needs, their wants, their motivation. Third point that I would make, these are just a little bit random, but just before we dive into the actual scripts, silence is okay in a meeting. And what I mean by that, in a presentation, silence is okay, or you have to be comfortable with silence momentarily to give them a chance to answer the question. Stop asking the questions you're asking them. I know that I've been guilty of this for sure, where I'm sitting in front of a seller or I'm sitting in front of a buyer and I ask an important question. And instead of just stopping and waiting for the answer, I'm so strung out on like, what are they going to say? How are they going to respond? Are they uncomfortable with what's going on? Did I not ask the question right? Whatever might be going through my mind. And I dive in and start answering the question. You can't do that. You've got to be willing to allow for some silence momentarily. Let them think about the question. Let it develop within their mind and expect that you get a good, strong answer from them. And then number 4 is just going to be this one, and we'll talk more about it. Always assume the sale. This to me is one of the most fundamental elements of sales and the close than anything else, is that when you assume that they're working with you, when you always assume that you're going to take the listing, get the buyer broker agreement signed, it's more than likely they're going to say yes. I always love to tell this story. And for those of you who've heard it before, I'm not going to apologize. I'm going to say you're welcome that you get to hear it again, because it's so important. But I always love to talk about the fact that I go to this stinking craft store for my wife, Michael's. You guys have all probably heard of it. And at the craft store, they always ask for your email at the counter. Now, do I want any emails from Michael's craft store? No, I do not, ever. Even though they give some good deals sometimes, I'll let my wife handle that. Yet I have given them my email address so many times it's ridiculous. And here's why. And this is the guy up training about sales right now and the close. And they get me on it every time, because it works. Is that if you go to the front of the line, you finally reach the cashier, and they say to you, there's a few questions that a cashier might ask, right? Is this a debit or a credit card? What's your zip code? And do you have an email on file with us? Okay, think about that. Here's what they do at Michael's that gets me. She'll say, what's your zip code? Give her my zip code. Is this a debit or a credit card? And then there's one of two ways that they'll ask the next question. One of them is, do you have an email address we can put on file? Well, if somebody asks me if they can have my email address to put on file, I'm pretty comfortable to just say, no, I don't need to. I'm not worried about that. Can I skip that one today? I'm not worried about that. But when the cashier is standing there and they say, email address, zip code, is this a debit or credit card? And then without even looking at me and without even acknowledging that they're asking me a question, she's just assuming the sale, hands on the keyboard, eyes on the screen, and saying, and what's your email? Now think about what that does for me as a consumer. Well, it puts me on the edge of, she's assuming I'm going to give this to her. And some of you can relate to this, but in my mind, I'm going, geez, is it really that big of a deal if I give her my email? Probably not. Am I going to look rude if I don't give her my email address right now? You know what? Maybe I should just give her my email. I work in sales too. Maybe she gets a bonus. I can always unsubscribe. And then I start even going, will the people behind me in line think I'm really rude if I don't? They've got my email already. What does it really matter? Now look, these are all the things that go through my mind in a matter of seconds, like a second, that convinces me to just blurt out my email to her. And why did I do that? Because she closed. She closed on me. She assumed the sale, and she got what she wanted from me. So you guys, that same principle applies. Imagine for a moment, you're sitting in front of the coffee table at a seller's home. You're sitting at the trunk of your car in a vacant home with a buyer, trying to get them to sign the buyer broker agreement. And you slide the agreement across. You say, here's what we've discussed. I just need an initial here, or I just need a signature right here, and we can get a sign up in your yard tomorrow. Think about what that does for people. Consider for a moment that the element of that is so powerful, that what will be going through the minds of your buyers and your sellers at that time is the same thing. Well, I think I'm probably going to work with this person anyway. I think they're going to be disappointed if I say no. I want to get this started on the right foot. I don't know what would cause me to say no right now. Let's just go ahead and move forward and sign. That's how it works. So the close is a natural ending to a great presentation. So guys, those are just 4 quick points about the close and about getting people to say yes. What I'd really love to do, and some of you are only listening on phone, you're not watching. So I'm going to try to speak through what these are, but there's some great points that I want to talk about in some of these scripts that we have. So I've got 4 scripts today that I'm going to share, and 3 of them are very, very short, and then 1 of them is longer. But what I would like to do is just get you set on the idea and better at closing, understanding the principles behind it, understanding the mindset behind it, and having some true skills behind you. These can be found in your script book. They are available to you. And if you need them, you can shoot me a text and I'll text these to you if you need it. My cell phone number is 801-859-6134. Again, 801-859-6134. So Russ, if you don't mind, let's put up first the master close. So guys, this has been our Century 21 script book for years. And this is absolutely essential that you understand this. And you should have this memorized. It is a great tool for you to be able to know what to say, how to say it, and get people towards saying yes. You know, if I went back in time in my career when I was selling full time, and some of you could also can relate to this. Have you ever been in a presentation where you did okay, but it wasn't easy to have a natural ending that was a close? And so because of that, you had to actually close, meaning you had to ask for the business, and you chickened out. Anybody on this call ever chickened out? I have. And it's uncomfortable. Most chicken out situations sound something like this. So I'll follow up with you in a couple of days. Or, okay, so just be in touch with me if you need anything. And we'll see how things are going, right? You have that awkward moment and you let them out without asking for the business. So I've had those situations. I've had those situations even where I felt like I'm probably going to get this listing. And somebody came in after me and they asked for the business. That's all they did. I talked to a client once and I got very deep into this with them because they were willing to talk about it. They basically said, I liked you better. I liked your presentation better. I like your company better. I like what you have to offer me better. But she came in here and we just signed with her because she asked us for it and kind of pushed us into it. Regardless of pushed or not or any of that, what I know, she asked for the signature on the paper and I did not. And that's one of the biggest results. Short of follow-up, I think not asking for the business is the second most consequential reason for a business not happening in our industry is that people don't ask for the business. Okay, let's move right into the master close. So let's say someone gives you a concern, and I hope you're watching. If you're not, or you're in a position where you can pull over really quickly or something, I'm going to run through these pretty quickly just to give you an opportunity, but you want to see these. So let's say they give you a concern. That concern might be, yeah, we like you. We'd really like to think about it. Okay. So point number 1 is to repeat and affirm and empathize. Point number 1 and 2, repeat, affirm, empathize. When someone shares with you something or anything or a concern, you really want to engage that way because you want to, number 1, help them know you're listening to them. You hear them, right? Don't be an alligator. Small ears, big mouth. Okay, think about it. You want to be telling them that you can listen to them. So when they tell you, well, we'd like to think about it, you want to repeat that. Oh, you'd like to think about it, and then affirm. That's great. Why do you affirm that? It's putting kind of an exclamation point behind you listening to them. It's you affirming to them, I hear you, and guess what? I'm on board. I'm excited. I'm enthusiastic. I'm encouraged by what you just said. And then you show empathy by saying, this is a big decision. If I were you, I'd feel the same way. I've had people over the years question that and the motives behind a statement like that. I mean, in the truest sense of the word of what that is, if you were them and you didn't have the knowledge you have, is it fair to say you'd likely feel the same way since they are them and that's how they feel? Hopefully you're following along with that logic right there. But if that's exactly how they're feeling, then if you were them, you'd feel the same way too. And what does that do? Well, it shows empathy. It just further confirms that you're listening to what they say, that you're in agreement with them, that you don't have a problem with it. And what this does with people, it helps them feel comfortable. It helps bring the walls down. It helps them know, hey, this person's actually on my side right now. I like this. They're going to feel good. And then what you're going to do is you're going to ask 3 questions that result in a yes. All right? 3 questions that result in a yes. Right now, those questions would be, so someone says, we really want to think about it right now. Then I'm going to say, then what I'm going to say to them is, you want to think about it? Well, that's great. If I were you, this is a huge decision. I'd feel the same way too. Share with me this. Getting your home sold is a priority, correct? Now, remember what I said earlier, guys, about pausing? Just be quiet and let them say yes. And when they've said yes, now here's where it gets tricky. You don't need to repeat, affirm, and empathize every single time. This is where sometimes we get mixed up, or a lot of sales people that call your home get screwed up because they don't do it right, is that they would say, oh, it is that is a priority to you. That's great. If I were you, selling my home would be a priority too. You don't need to do it every single time. All you need to do is affirm, because you're trying to get them to say yes. So getting the home sold is a priority, correct? Yes? Great. And it's important that you make the most money out of this sale, correct? Yes. Excellent. Do you find value in having the largest company in the world or the area promoting or marketing your home? Yes. Super. Now, as you get to number 3, look, you could fill in the gaps with anything right there. Perhaps earlier in the conversation, they said something to you like, a name doesn't matter. We don't care about your company. We care about the agent. So if you've pre-qualified them correctly, if you understand their wants, their needs, their motivation, what drives them, then number 3, you can fill in the blank with anything there. So you could say something like, sounds like you find great value in having an agent that communicates weekly with you about the results of the home, correct? And they will then say yes. Doesn't matter what it is, ask 3 yes questions. These are 3 questions that are certain to get you a yes. Then let's say I'm talking to a guy named Russ. Well, Russ, I'm confused. Help me understand. What is preventing us from getting your home on the market tonight? Okay, do you see that? They've told you they want to think about it. You've repeated, affirm, you've empathized. You've asked 3 yes questions, so they're in agreement with you. And then you say, well, I'm confused. Help me understand. What is preventing us from getting your home on the market tonight? And then they're going to say again, possibly, you want to think about it? That's great. Then you want to isolate the objection, okay? Well, Russ, we're just exploring possibilities. Setting those issues aside for a moment, the issue of we want to think about it, is there anything else that's preventing us from working together? So imagine for a moment that you've got a barrel of apples, all right? And the barrel of apples could be all of the different reasons that somebody doesn't want to list a home, right? And it could be, we want to think about it. We already have an agent. We don't owe enough money. We aren't in position to sell. My mom's a real estate agent. You don't want to price it high enough. Whatever it is, all of those objections. When it says on number 6, you want to isolate the objection, you want to make sure that you're getting the one objection or 2 objections that are really standing in your way to be isolated, put aside. And the reason why, because otherwise, well, the seller's just holding a big barrel of apples there, a whole big bowl full of objections. And you have to be able to isolate the objections, instead of giving them 50 different reasons, figure out exactly what the reasons are, and then isolate them, set them aside so that instead of holding a barrel of apples, there's one apple in their hand. Hopefully that makes sense and you're seeing the visual idea of that. But when someone just has the one and you've isolated it, they're not worried about all the other possibilities. So again, the isolating the objection. Hey, Russ, we're just exploring possibilities right now. If we set the issue aside about you wanting to think about it, is there anything else that would prevent us from working together? And then pause, let them answer. Other questions that you could be looking at. What other concerns do you have? What else? You see how it's continuing on? If you say, is there anything else that would prevent us from working together? Well, we do have another agent that we're planning on meeting with tomorrow. Okay, that's wonderful. Put that apple out of the barrel. You've got 2 apples now, 2 objections you have to worry about. And then you say, okay, third. And then you say again, what else is there? Are there any other objections? They might say, no, none. That's it. We just want to think about it, and we have another meeting with an agent. Or they might say, yeah, we're a little bit concerned that you don't have enough experience. Okay, think. You're isolating the objections. You're getting specifically out. And guys, during this time, you've got a pen and paper in your hand, hopefully, and you're writing down their concerns. You're showing them that you're listening to them and you're hearing what they say. And then you continue this process until they have no more objections for you. Okay, and then solutions. Number 7, ask the client for their solution to each objection. And then you offer your solution. So guys, we're diving pretty deep here into the world of objection handling. So what must you understand then to be successful with item number 7? Well, you have to understand the objections. You have to know the objection handlers. You have to feel confident that when someone says to you, I'd like to think about it, that you know how you would handle that objection. What would you say? What would their concerns really be? Think about that. Are you prepared to isolate the objections and handle them? If not, here's the joy. There is role playing happening every single day. You have script books in front of your face every single day, or you should. The ability to be able to be successful with item number 7 is sitting within arm's length of you almost always, because you might have a PDF version on your phone and you have it. So make absolutely certain that you have solutions. Then number 8 says concession. Offer a concession if needed. Look, we could talk about that all day long. I know early in my career, I worked for a company called Exit Realty. And at Exit Realty, there was a document that they provided. It was called the Easy Exit Strategy. And the Easy Exit Strategy gave people basically an easy out to your contract. I never had anyone use it, but it certainly created some comfort for people. Would I recommend using it? No, because I don't think it's necessary. Could you come up with something almost like a 3 strikes and you're out policy to help them see if you're not doing your job and you've outlined what your job is, then they have the right to cancel the contract? Okay, you could come up with something like that. And again, I would only recommend that if it was very clear what your job was, and virtually impossible unless you were messing up for them to cancel the agreement. But concession, that might be an example of a concession that you might be needing to do. Or for example, concession might be, I'd like to think about it. Okay, cool, I'll tell you what we could do then. For people who've had that concern in the past, we can go ahead and get the paperwork signed. I can get the photo tour ordered. So you might say something like this: when I have this paperwork signed, it gives me the ability to get the photo tour ordered. And then I have the photo tour ordered and I can get the sign ordered. I can have everything getting up and rolling this afternoon, so we're ready to go tomorrow. So why don't we get the paperwork signed, and then we touch base with each other either later this evening or first thing tomorrow, and we can make an absolute firm decision on whether or not we're moving forward together. That might be a concession that you give. just throwing out ideas to you guys, but just be thinking about that. And again, if you have questions about whether or not a concession is appropriate or a good idea, another concession might be, well, you're telling us you want to sell the home too high or too low, excuse me. Other agents have told us more. We'd work with you if it weren't for that. That might be their objection. What concessions could you give? Hey, you know what? I'm willing to give it a try at a little bit of a higher price. However, I would need you to sign an addendum or a price reduction, MLS change price reduction today for 2 weeks from now that will get down to the price. So we'll either be under contract at a higher price in 2 weeks, or we'll be reducing the price. Those are ideas of concessions that you might use. Feel free to work through and do some more. And then, of course, you've now isolated the objections. You've asked for their solutions to the objections. Then you've offered your solutions. And look, you keep working through that. Once you've come up with a solution and they've come up with a solution, you can go right back to number 6 and just say, is there anything else that would prevent us from working together? I love the idea. Boy, you just repeat almost the whole thing and figuring out, going back to finding 3 other yes questions. Now, I'll go back. A few of these other ones that we'll talk about today could be interesting. So offer the concession if needed. Number 9, close. Once all objections are resolved, close for the signature. And number 10, congratulate. Congratulate the client on their decision to move forward. Tell them you've made a great decision. Be excited for them. Encourage them. And that's huge. So, boy, I don't know if we're in a position here to, I guess we have a chat line, but if anyone has any questions or anything, feel free to throw them on the chat. Otherwise, we'll just keep rolling with these. So let's move on to the next 3, Russ. So these are powerful closes for the listing presentation. You've got 3 closes here. Number 1, the how do you feel close. Very simple. Let's run through that. Number 1, you ask these questions. And again, you remember, you want to affirm after they've answered, in addition to making sure you give them a chance to answer. Number 1, how do you feel about what I've shared with you? Good, great. You're going to affirm what they say. Number 2, how do you feel about us working together? Listen for their answer and say, excellent. Number 3, how do you feel about us putting together some paperwork right now? Outstanding. Let's get started by concluding on a final list price and fill out some paperwork. It says, how do you spell their last name? Don't ask how to spell their last name if it's Smith or Johnson or something. So anyway, that's a funny one. Just know the how do you feel. You're getting them to say yes. How do you feel about what I've shared with you? Now look, you might be saying, well, what if they say, I don't feel good? What are you going to do? Well, you're going to isolate the objection, right? You're going to try to understand what their concern is and then figure it out. And once you've figured out what they don't feel good about, you'll say, perfect. Now, how do you feel about what I've shared with you? Good, great. How do you feel about us working together? They might say yes, they might say no. They might say they feel great, they might not feel great. And what do you do if they say they don't feel great? We're going to ask them, share with me what your concerns are. What's on your mind? Think about this. This is very easy as you work through this process. One of the things I learned about myself and I've seen over the years with agents, we get so caught up in the script. George, I love, he talks about the book Think and Grow Rich a lot. And when he talks about Think and Grow Rich, the idea is you have to think, right? It comes first. The thinking comes first. If there's something in a script or in a situation that you're working on that doesn't feel right, look right, you don't think it's going to get the right thing across, then don't say it, right? I mean, it's almost like this is your script and you know it so well. I'll give you a perfect example. Number 4 on the how do you feel? Let's get started on concluding on list price and filling out some paperwork. How do you spell your last name? Well, that's the script, right? If you were sitting in front of a family member that shares your last name, or a family member with a name you know, or a neighbor or something, just because the script says, how do you spell your last name, do you need to ask, how do you spell your last name? Now, some of you might be rolling your eyes at the fact that I'm even asking this right now. I promise it's worthwhile that we're talking about it. The answer is no. And why is it no? Because you have to think. You must think, right, about what's right and appropriate in that moment. So think and grow rich, okay? All right, so let's move on to the 3 no close, okay? How so funny, right? We're trying to get people to say yes, but what do people working with salespeople want to say? What is their impulse? What are they want to say no. They've been taught and trained and conditioned that they should say no to a salesperson. And so here's what's awesome. What if you get them to say no while saying yes? Hear me out on this. 3 no close. Number 1, you ask, is there anything else you would expect from me as your agent to get your home sold? No? Great. Is there anything else you would expect from Century 21 Everest in order to get your home sold? No. Excellent. 3, is there any reason we can't get started tonight? No. Fantastic. You see how that works? You get to say no. They get to say no 3 times, and you get a yes from them at the end of the day and signatures on paper. That's a great one. I really like using that. And at the end of the day, again, if you need to make some adjustments to the questions, think about it. Figure out what works for you and what you like. You can definitely get them to say no 3 times that result in a yes. And then, of course, you go through the value close, okay? Whatever that might be. Are you aware of blank? May I share blank? Describe the features and benefits to them. So are you aware of something that you do? Think about your value proposition. It might be, are you familiar with just listed, just sold calls? Are you familiar, or are you familiar with door knocking? Are you familiar with farming? It could be anything you do. Are you familiar with a call capture line or text line? Whatever it might be, guys. Are you familiar with online lead searching or home searching? Whatever it is. Think about something that you do that will create value. Are you familiar with an open house? I know many people are doing open houses. Whatever that value is, you're going to say, may I share with you how this works and what it does? And then you share with them the thing that you're doing. And then number 3, look, do you feel, see, or think there is value in that? So you share the value, and then you ask, do you think that there's value in that? What's the value that you see? Again, they're talking now. They're engaged in the discussion with you. And then when they've concluded upon that, let's just say it's we can just say it's let's use the personalized website as an example, right? Are you familiar with the Century 21? Are you aware of the Century 21 individual listing sites? No, I'm not. May I share the details of how that works with you? Absolutely. You share the details and you say, do you feel like having your own personalized website for your home could create value in this process? Yes, I do. Well, what value do you see? Let them share it. And that's something you'd want me to use, right? They'll say yes. And then you're getting a yes from them, right? And then you repeat that with each benefit that you're sharing. So you might then identify as part of your listing presentation 3, 4, or 5 benefits that separate you from your competition. And what you're doing is you're just affirming with them, getting them to say yes, getting them to engage in a discussion about you and your sales process. And then 7, of course, great. Is it safe to assume that we can work together as long as we can agree upon a price and commission that we both feel comfortable with? I love that. Isn't that nice? You get people to say yes to you, and assuming you can come to terms on a price, assuming you can come to terms on the commission amounts, that they'll work with you. And look, that's most of people's concerns right there. That's a great one to get because they've already said yes. So guys, that's 4 examples today. Rush, you can take that down if you want then, or if you can. That's 4 examples today of some great and powerful closes for your business. Now, just because you sat in the room today and you listened to this, look, you're a little better right now than you were 20 minutes ago. I promise you, if you will take some time and you will study these scripts and get them retained to memory, and get them to be really just a part of who you are and the way in which you work your business, things will go so much more smoothly for you. You'll have all the confidence in the world in getting people to say yes to you, or no 3 times to give you a yes, one of those things. But your business will explode, guys. You'll be a much more powerful presenter. You'll be better at understanding the needs, and your confidence will be unshakable, as our affirmations say, because you know what to say next. It says, my confidence is unshakable because I live with integrity. Yes, you know what you're saying. You get what you're about to say. You know what this process looks like inside. Have you ever been a part of a presentation where you're like, I have no clue what's coming next. I've got to fake it till I make it, BS my way through this presentation. If you haven't, then you're an anomaly. Most of us have. The key thing is not allowing yourself to do that over and over and over again. If you can learn these scripts, commit them to memory, you'll see some awesome stuff happen in your business. So guys, it's great to be with you today. Thank you so much for all that you're doing, and wish you guys nothing but the best. Go out and have an awesome day today. Thanks for participating in our coaching call. Go close. Thank you.